KMSU.
Dustin, please.
This is Dustin. Is this Tommy?
It is Dustin. Hi, how are you? Did I catch you at a bad time? You guys are doing a pledge fundraising drive. Maybe it was a bad time to call, huh?
No, sorry.
You're going to hit me up for money. No, I'm kidding. How are you?
I'm excellent. How are you doing today?
Better than I deserve to be.
Okay. Well, it's great to be talking with you. I won't keep you too long.
Oh, well, thanks. The privilege is mine.
Well, first of all, I want to ask you about the new Whitesnake album, the Purple album. What can we expect from that?
What can you expect? You can expect to hear songs. I'm not going to use the word updated, but I just did. David revisiting his history with, with those two Whitesnake albums. Deep Purple albums that he did when he was with those guys, and it's something that he'd been talking about doing for a while, and it just kind of availed itself the opportunity. So that's what it is.
And I know you have been playing on and off with Whitesnake for years, and actually started, right after their first album. I know you joined the band, and those guys were huge at the time. That must have been a crazy time to kind of walk into all that.
Well, yes, it was. It was a huge record. It was at the time when MTV and was still a big thing, and it was a different era in America at that time. So yeah, it was. We were just constant rotation on MTV, and we were doing 5-6 shows a night in each city. It was it was very nice. It was probably one of the busiest times I've had in my career for sure. But yeah, it was cool. It was nice to be part of that.
Well, and I know the next album, The Slip of the Tongue, was huge as well, and then you guys just kind of folded after that. Was that sort of a quit while you're on top, or what was the reasoning behind that?
Well, David wanted to get away, and yeah, we had been surrounding, we toured and back then, we'd go out for, the first tour, like the 87, the first leg of that tour was 18 months long. We had a couple of very short breaks in it, and David had a low back issue. He had a herniated disc, so we took a couple, 2 or 3 weeks off for that. Oh no, there were some dates that were postponed because of that, and he had his disc repaired, and then we went back and made up those dates. So back then, you'd go out for a year and a half or so with on the record, and we were just essentially beat up and burnt out, So David decided he wanted to take some time off, So that's what happened.
Well, of course, you're back with Whitesnake now, and everything's good. You guys are actually touring now. I know you have a show coming up in Minnesota, and that's at the Shoot Star Casino in Monoman coming up in July.
Are you in Minnesota?
Yep, we're in Minnesota here.
Oh, cool, yeah. The tour hasn't started. We start rehearsal in about 10 days, and we start up in Canada and drop down, and we'll be in America till about the end of August, and which is unusual for us because we haven't really toured extensively in the U.S. for yonks. Last tour we were only in the States for maybe 3 weeks, and all the rest of the 7 months that we were out was in Europe, South America, Japan, everywhere essentially but the States. So yeah, it's nice to be out for a while in America this time. So we hit some spots we haven't been in quite some time.
Yeah, awesome. And I got to ask, I know you've been drumming, a heavy kind of style of music for, 40 plus years. Is there anything that you need to do, or, precautions you need to take to stay healthy, make sure you're not wrecking rotator cuffs and that sort of thing over the years?
Well, I did have a rotator cuff issue. It wasn't, I had a full fitness rotator cuff tear in my left shoulder, but it was not from not taking care of myself. It was a bone spur, and I have a kind of arm and shoulder intensive job. So,
sure.
The bone spur, and it was something that bothered me for years before it actually got to the point that I had X-rays and I did everything. I tried to take care of myself. Contrary to popular belief, if you don't take care of yourself in this business, you're not going to be around for very long. It's kind of like that's about the shelf life of a professional athlete, about 6 or 7 years, and boom, you're gone. So,
Sure.
I tried to take care of myself. So that wasn't, it was a bone spur that over the years, just kind of, compromised my rotator cuff to the point where it just let go one day. And it wasn't that I wasn't, trying to find out what it was, because it bothered me for quite some time. It's just, they do x-rays. That's the typical, where they find, bone spurs and stuff, but they didn't see any. And it wasn't until I had my rotator cuff was completely, torn that, did an MRI, and then they saw it in the MRI, But no, just the same applies. Take care of yourself, especially if you're a drummer, because it's somewhat more physical than some of the secondary instruments. Guitar, all the other instruments are secondary to drums, I think. I'm kidding. Just take care of yourself and do the right thing. You can't stay up all night. You have to be responsible, just like any other gig.
Sure. I also want to ask you, I was a huge Ozzy Osbourne fan growing up. I want to ask you about your memories playing with him and, especially playing with Randy Rhoads around that time.
Yeah, well, my memories of Randy kind of dominate that time frame. That's how I got involved with Ozzy. I was living in England at the time, and I was working with Gary Moore, who happened to be on the same label, Jet Records, at the time, and Ozzy was just coming out of kind of trying to come back after his run with Black Sabbath, and that's when I met Randy. And that was an awesome experience and a real blessing and privilege to have worked with Randy Rhoads. It really was a high watermark in my career and in my life, and having him as a friend. So most all of that time period was pretty much eclipsed with memories of Randy,
Yeah, and of course, sadly, he left us, and Ozzy was kind of trying to get on track around there and putting out some live albums. Was that a strange vibe, trying to deal with that and still working?
Well, it was, because I was there. We were trying to find a guitar player, and a lot of the running around and a lot of the practical stuff of auditioning guys and things like that was left up to me, and I was kind of like jumping around all over the place and doing auditions, and still kind of in shock, they say nobody's irreplaceable. Well, that's not necessarily true. If you don't care about certain things, anybody's replaceable, but there's certain things in some instances that I believe that, these people aren't replaceable, and Randy Rhoads was that one. He was the one that had all the cool riffs, all those great musical ideas on Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman. All that stuff is essentially riffs that Randy Rhoads is singularly responsible for. It was collaborative in the sense that Bob Daisley was involved, as well as from a lyrical and melody standpoint, but almost all the music was, that came straight from the mind, body, and soul of Randy Rhoads. Yeah, it was very traumatic trying to find someone, because you just, like I said, some people just aren't replaceable and still kind of being in shock. But I ran around and we ultimately found, Jakey Lee, and he came in, and there were a couple of, Brad Gillis was kind enough to come in and kind of bail us out and keep things kind of going, because it was important we try to maintain some momentum, just so we didn't dwell on, of the loss, and just trying to maintain some momentum, So yeah, it was a tough time. It was pretty tough, yeah.
Well, and of course, you appeared on the Bark at the Moon album, which was, I think, really, Ozzy's last great album for quite a stretch, and you mentioned people not being replaceable, but it seems there was a lot of controversy, with Jakey Lee and Bob Daisley. You mentioned, kind of writing a lot of the stuff and then not getting credit. I mean, I don't know if that was all Sharon or lawyers, or did that kind of keep you, from keeping your mind on the game and just, playing music, I guess?
Well, we had an arrangement on that record that, we had a business arrangement that was clear cut, and that was in place before we went in and recorded all the stuff, because we worked a lot of that stuff up in the studio, and Bark at the Moon album, and all that stuff, all those arrangements and business decisions and deals were made before we actually did the record. Now, the situation at the time was not typical in that the songwriting and stuff was, even though there may have been some other people responsible for it, Ozzy pretty much named computer science because he bought the songs essentially from the people that put them that came up with the songs. So it was an unusual situation in that regard. So I don't want to get into the into the legal stuff or into the throwing people under the bus about this or that, or songwriting and things like that. But there's a few things that happened that were atypical. I'll leave it at that.
Well, of course, you went on and played with so many different people over the years, starting out with Black Oak, Arkansas, and of course played with Motorhead and Ted Nugent, Gary Moore, as you mentioned. Is there kind of a secret to being able to gel with a lot of these different bands, especially the ones that have been established already, and then you come into them afterwards?
Yeah, well, you said I've worked with a lot of people, and that's true, and people actually, and I guess it's a double-edged sword. I don't know if because people thought I'm cool that I've been with so many bands, or it's just a case of not being able to hold a job down. I'm not sure. I'm not sure which it is, but yeah, I've been really blessed in that regard, and I can't really explain why. In some situations where there was some momentum established, in the case of Whitesnake, I mean, you mentioned Whitesnake, the 87 album in the first record. Well, in America, and a lot of Americans think that, but Whitesnake had been around way previous to that in different incarnations, But you just come in, and I've been really blessed in that regard. And the business was much smaller then. There were only a handful of guys, whose names would be on the list. Now there's so many, the business is so much more populated, and there's so many astounding, amazing players out there that it's become much more competitive and just more highly populated. And by virtue of just simple math or simple physics, it's tougher out there than it has been. It's more competitive. The level of play is increased and become just so much greater than in years past, and which is a great thing for the consumers, because they're getting better music and stuff. It's all good. It's all positive stuff. But in my case, I mean, I've worked hard, and I feel that I was just kind of put myself in a position to receive the blessing, so to speak. Nothing more, nothing less.
Sure.
I don't want to take too much credit for anything, because I'm best at just screwing things up. Anything that really, really great that's happened in my life has been more of a blessing than anything else.
Well, with that being said, though, you mentioned kind of the caliber of drummers getting better over the years, and I know you are partly at least responsible for that, not only just being a legendary drummer yourself, but a lot of the drum clinics that you put on and, teaching the new guys. So there's something to be said about that, I think.
Oh, well, I try to, get out and hang with the guys as much as I can, ladies, and try to just, share the wealth, so to speak. There's room for everyone, and when I was coming up, there wasn't many opportunities to go and see people do stuff close up, because you can hear someone do something and say, whoa, and have a tough time figuring it out. And in some cases, you can actually watch somebody do something and have a tough time figuring it out. But when you get an opportunity to get somebody to break something down for you, and slow it down and really biopsy the parts and stuff, it makes it a lot easier and I think a lot more inspirational. In my case, when I was growing up trying to figure things out, I just get so frustrated sometimes. I just, want to slash my wrist, trying to figure stuff out. You work it out because you don't take no for an answer. But it's there's some positives in today for today's drummers coming up in that regard. I mean, the fact that it's so much more competitive, is not such a positive. But there's so many opportunities to really get some really great information out there. Just to go on Instagram and you see and hear so much great playing and some guys that are really sharing the information out there, and that's really, really cool. I applaud that.
Yeah, for sure. And it's great to hear that, that you're still out there doing it. And we mentioned Whitesnake's Purple album coming up and the tour. Is there anything else maybe in the works or upcoming projects in the future?
Well, we're trying to burn this bridge, when we get to it, which is the record that's currently coming. Well, it's not even out yet, so we haven't put too much thought into next year. We're going to try to get this bridge burned before we start trying to build another one,
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, again, Tommy, it's been an honor talking with you today. I appreciate it.
Not at all. And Dustin, thank you so much for your time and, for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. And hopefully, when we're up there in your area, stick your head in. We'll have a beer or something.
Yeah, that would be great for sure. Hopefully I can get up to the show and run into you there.
Cool. We'll take care of you.
Again, thanks so much for being on with me today.
Thank you, Dustin. God bless you, man. Take care.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.